Thank you for pressing start on episode 55 of Underplayed, KZUM's indie video game podcast. Today, we recap and reflect on the games of Season 5 and take a look ahead by planning our featured game roster for Season 6. Here on Underplayed, we review indie games of all kinds, the games with small budgets but big hearts, the lesser-known experiences with imaginative ideas. I'm Bo Po, and joining me is my best friend, playing games that he recommends. He's the biggest fan of Mega Man, flipping phones after smartphones began. I'm talking about the late-night streaming, secret game scheming. Everyone say hola to DiscoCola. What is going on?
Not much. I do have, now that we've had that rhyme for a full season, I do have a confession to make to the listener.
You're a smartphone user now.
There is talk of me having a work phone because of a certain app that we'll need coming up. But the confession's actually about Mega Man. I have never beaten any of the Mega Man Battle Network games, and I have also not beaten Mega Man Legends yet, but I have played it. So I'm a huge fan of Mega Man, but maybe the biggest fan is
this
not
is
true.
this is just a travesty.
I know.
I can't work like this. I can't work with a.
I'm so sorry.
What are we even doing here?
I don't, in my defense, when I played Mega Man Battle Networks 1 and 2, the GBA battery died before I could beat the game in both instances.
No.
So I did try.
Yeah.
And then my work was obliterated before my eyes. So very upsetting.
Well, there is so much Mega Man content out there that it's hard to enjoy it all and to play it all.
Yes, and I have every intention of doing so.
Yeah.
And it's my own fault for writing Mega Man Battle Network off when I had free time and not getting into it until I was an adult.
Maybe that'll be what you can work on between seasons, not to make your agenda for you.
That would be great. I also have a lot of trophies to catch up on.
Anyways,
how are you today, Bopo?
Oh my gosh, we are meeting here in the morning on a Sunday, which is an unusual time for us to record.
Yeah, we usually do afternoons.
Afternoons on Sundays. So I'm feeling great. I'm feeling so happy to be at the end of Season 5 with you. I love this episode. Every season, I love reflecting on the season and looking ahead. And we're going to pick the 10 featured games for Season 6. That's so exciting. We're going to determine our fates for the next 6 months or so, which is insane. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Okay?
Mornings are always hard for me. I'm a DGen boy, but
you just got a haircut?
Yeah.
Looking fresh?
The listeners don't know how much hair was cut.
A lot was cut.
It was a decent amount.
It was a lot. Do you mind sharing how many months it had been since the last haircut?
I usually get haircuts in month 6 and month 12 of the year. This time it went 8 months before I got my haircut. So
is that how you refer to June and December, month 6 and 12?
Only in the case of getting my haircut, because it's just like multiples of 6 and it's fun.
Yeah. My birthday is month 8, by the way.
Oh, congratulations.
Just reminding you. This is the Season 5 finale episode. We're going to reflect on the 30 games we played for Season 5. We'll pick our lineup of featured games for the upcoming Season 6, which will start premiering in the middle of 2024. If you're just joining us on Underplayed now, this is the first episode you've listened to. For your awareness, this is a pretty unusual episode. It's unlike most of our other episodes in that every season we spend 10 episodes reviewing 3 games per episode, and we focus on indie games made by smaller teams with smaller budgets, games that are very imaginative and that tell interesting stories. And this is our episode where we look back at those last 10 episodes for, in this case, Season 5. So if you want to know a little bit more about our thoughts on these games, you can listen to the previous 10 episodes and then come back here and hear all the awards we're about to give to the games and just our everlasting feelings that we have about them.
Yeah.
DiscoCola, after season 5, how are you feeling as you look back at these last 10 episodes and 30 games? How do you feel about the podcast? How do you feel about the games we picked to play? How are you feeling energy-wise? Just like, what's going through your mind?
I'll work backwards from there. Energy-wise, I am a little bit drained. I mentioned it, I think, in the Homebody episode that I've played so many puzzle games and my brain is just overwhelmed. So I'm ready to just like turn on an action platformer and just like Mega Man go fast, Mega Man go burr, kind of a vibe. I feel great about the podcast. I think the podcast was just incredible this season. We had some great guest episodes, and those went a lot better than I could have hoped. And I love that our episodes are really digestible in this last season, so I'm loving that. And then how am I feeling about the games that we picked for season 5? Honestly, as far as like a lineup goes, the featured games were not ones that I was super looking forward to, but I still had a lot of fun, and I found a lot of good secret games to synergize with those featured games. So I did end up still having a lot of fun. How about you? Same questions.
Same questions. I'm kind of the same way as you, where I'm a little puzzled out. Like there are trends we just sort of accidentally perform on this show with the games we pick sometimes. And this season we had tons of puzzle games. You'll hear us talk a lot about these puzzle games this episode, so we'll get into it a little bit more. But yeah, I'm kind of like you, where I have those games that are my happy place. Yours is the action platformer. I have a couple different ones, but like I'm looking forward to doing, third-person action games and platformers and some story-based games between seasons. As far as the podcast, I feel really great about the podcast. We continued the momentum. We interacted with new people. We did a lot of stuff with Twitch. We were really consistent with our Twitch new episode premieres. I was able to join all of them this time because we changed when we do those. So that was great to just embrace that platform as a new way to interact with listeners and to listen to our episodes again after we had already recorded and edited them. And then for the games, when it comes to featured games, I was pleasantly surprised by more of them than I thought I would be. And I discovered a lot of secret games sort of along the way as we did our season. So
Okay.
I went in with a plan, and I ended up changing like 3 or 4 or 5 of the secret games as we went along. Very happy as always with our selections overall. And, when we pick all these games for a season, ultimately, all of this is kind of arbitrary, right? Because we don't go into a season with, trying to check all these specific boxes. So comparing games, ranking games, giving awards to games like we were about to do is arbitrary, but
nothing matters and you're all going to die.
Well, I'm not going that margin. But I just want to acknowledge that for people who are curious about why we do this. It's less about we are holding all these games to the same rubric every single season and more about we are transitioning from one season to the next, and it's a good moment to look back and reflect on things that we love. And next, we are going to move on to our thank you section. This is where we are thanking developers who had something to say or share about our episodes this past season. We want to say thank you to our friends of all kinds and people we met throughout the past season. Just everybody we love. These are our thank yous. DiscoCola, do you want to share the first thank you?
Yeah. We want to thank Corey Martin. He's the developer of Bonfire Peaks. He took a listen to the Stanley Parable episode, which also featured Bonfire Peaks as a secret game, and he seemed very thankful that we played and reviewed the game. Well, that you played and reviewed the game.
We want to thank the team behind Hypnospace Outlaw for interacting with our post about that game. Amazing to see that.
Another one was Sonzai Games, the developer of Batboy, for saying that they loved the Batboy review, as I would hope would be the case.
We want to thank Jack King Spooner, the developer of Dujana, for listening to our review and thanking us for our review.
And then up next, Visai Games, the developer of Venba. They shared our episode covering Venba with their followers.
Thank you to Clever Plays, the developer of Operation Tango, for thanking us for our review.
We also want to thank Mojiken, the developer of A Space for the Unbound. They shared our post about the game on Instagram and put that in front of a lot of new listeners.
Thank you also to Moonlight Kids, the developer of The Wild at Heart, for their appreciation of our review of The Wild at Heart.
We want to thank our new friend Tantaralus for recommending sales of games that we've covered on the podcast and just generally like being a fan through and through. He's been showing up to a lot of our individual streams as well. So thanks for getting everybody the good deals, Tan.
Yes, we love a good deal. Thank you, Tan. Our new Twitch friend, Blobfishman, thank you so much for joining me while I was streaming tabs and giving me a lot of assistance and just giving me more insight into the game, especially the unit creation and the army creation.
I think his input really did a lot to bolster the review at the end of it,
yes,
too. So
totally.
Big props there. We want to thank our podcast besties at No Small Games for their friendship, their support, and for inviting us onto their podcast over the holiday season. We look forward to any time we get to work with them. So we'll be hearing from them soon.
Yes, more collaborations in the future for our very good friends at No Small Games. Thank you. We also want to thank Jack Rodenberg for composing new music for this episode, which you will hear in a moment.
What?
Very exciting.
Big surprise.
Yeah.
In addition to Jack Rodenberg, again, we want to thank Oni Mochi for being our first two guests on Underplayed, and we look forward to more guests in the future. But we really loved starting with our artist and our composer. What a great fit, I think.
And then we want to thank all our friends who followed and listened to the Underplayed Twitch broadcasts of both our new episodes and our co-op streams of Operation Tango. Thank you for being there with us, chatting with us, commenting on the game, commenting on the episodes, and just making us smile.
Yeah, it really brightens up our Monday nights, so look forward to that in Season 6 as well. We also want to thank everyone who listened to Underplayed episodes on all of our podcast services, commented on the episodes, shared the podcasts, gave us a review of 5 stars or less if you did. Thank you for any and all reviews of Underplayed.
And then finally, we want to thank KZUM, the station that allows us to be part of the Podcast Partners Program and the place where we are given a space and equipment to produce our podcasts. Without KZUM, Underplayed wouldn't appear or sound like it does now. So we really appreciate KZUM for basically being our host, being our big supporter. And if you want to support KZUM as a nonprofit community radio station, they appreciate listener support. So you can do that anytime at kzum.org.
Yeah, hit that donate button. And if you feel the need to mention Underplayed podcast in the favorite shows section of that form, we'd really be grateful to get an email from the station staff about that.
Yes, absolutely. Those are great thank yous. And before we move on, if you're listening to Underplayed right now, thank you and we love you. If you haven't already, please consider giving us a follow and a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It takes just a few seconds and goes a long way. It's time for our Season 5 recap and reflection. Listeners who have listened to past seasons might notice that's a new piece of music there. That's courtesy of Jack Rodenberg, who equipped us with that new swanky music.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jack.
I'm so stoked about that. So that's awesome.
So our first part of our Season 5 recap and reflection is running down our secret games and what we rated them. Would you mind just going from episode 45 to 54, listing all of your secret games and the scores you gave them?
50. Yeah. So up first in episode 45, I played Gora Goa. I gave that a 7. Episode 46 was Jotun Valhalla Edition with an 8. Next was 2D and Top D, which I gave a 7. After that was Downwell, which I gave a 9. And then in episode 49, I gave Bat Boy a perfect 10.
Yeah, you did.
And in episode 50, I played Leghead, and I gave that a 9. Episode 51 was Homebody, which I gave an 8. Episode 52 was Serial Cleaner with a 7. Next was Super Crush KO, which I gave a 9.5. And then our most recent secret game from episode 54 was River City Girls, which I gave an 8.5.
I will quickly mention my secret games for the season, starting with episode 45 and ending with episode 54. We had Bonfire Peaks. I gave that an 8. My next one was Alba, a wildlife adventure. I rated that an 8. Hypnospace Outlaw was next. I rated that a 7. Next, I had Speed Dating for Ghosts. I rated that a 7. Then Dujana, I rated that a 6. Haiku the Robot, I gave that an 8.5. Then it was Kaze and the Wild Masks. I gave that an 8. I had Venba next. I gave that a 9.5. And then The Room, which I gave a 7. And The Wild at Heart, which I rated a 9. Now, looking at all these ratings, the superficial scores that we give to these games, what do we notice about our scores? Would you change any of the scores if you were to re-rate them today?
Yeah, so as part of this, we calculate our averages. Bopo's average score for secret games was 7.8. Mine was an 8.3, correct?
Yes.
And so just putting that out there. I think that I often find most of my joy in my secret games, maybe because I like to find the synergizing game, and that's sort of like, it's like troubleshooting and reverse engineering game in itself, is like figuring out which game pairs the best. I did look back at my previous averages, and this one's actually the highest.
It is. Interesting.
Most seasons have one or two that I just don't like very much, but I at least liked all of the ones that I played this season.
Yeah, your lowest score was a 7.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
2D and Top D and Serial Cleaner probably didn't quite meet my expectations that I had for them. I don't really feel strongly about any changes. I might add 0.5 to a Leghead. The only frustrations I have looking back is about the backtracking section of the game. And I don't think I would take any scores down, at least. So maybe just add some love to a Leghead.
Nice. I kind of feel the same way. I don't know that I would change anything. There is one game on my list that sort of almost eludes rating, and that's Dujana, just because it's so different and unlike anything else I've played. So it's hard to compare it to other 6s I've given. So I could go up to a 6.5. I could maybe rate it lower. I landed on a 6, which is the lower end of positive for me because it is a game that has stuck with me and I still think about. And I think that's really powerful. And when games can do that, I think that's really cool, actually. So
at least worthy of mentioning. So it's really nice that we have this episode to this had lasting power that I wasn't necessarily expecting.
Yeah, definitely. So. Other than that, I don't think I would change any scores. I feel really good about them this time. Awesome. Cool. We will talk about our featured games now. I'll just quickly list our featured games for the season and what we rated them. So first we had the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. DiscoCola rated it a 7.5. I rated it a 9. We had Titan Souls next. DiscoCola rated it an 8. I rated it a 5. Donut County was our third featured game of the season. DiscoCola rated it an 8.5. I gave it a 9. SteamWorld Dig was next. DiscoCola gave it a 7. I gave it a 6.5. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator was next. DiscoCola gave it a 5. I gave it an 8. Our next featured game was A Short Hike. DiscoCola gave it an 8.5. I gave it a 9. Then we had Soma. DiscoCola gave it a 9. I gave it an 8. Operation Tango was our third to last featured game. DiscoCola gave it an 8. I gave it a 7.5, and that was our co-op game for the season. Then we had A Space for the Unbound. DiscoCola gave it an 8. I gave it a 9.5. And then lastly, we had Sifu, which DiscoCola gave a 7.5, and I rated a 9. So what do you notice about these scores? My average score was 8.05. Your average score was 7.7.
Yeah. I think considering I wasn't super looking forward to most of these games, I think my average is actually surprisingly high. I mentioned in the Soma episode that my rubric has a category for those games that I'm replaying based on my enjoyment the first time around. So I think I put a little bit too much weight on failing to have as much fun as I did the first time around with Donut County. So I might add zero point 0.5 there to meet you at 9. I've
Okay.
also been playing Sifu on student mode for trophy cleanup, and it's way more enjoyable.
That's awesome.
I might add a 0.5 there.
Cool.
But mostly I feel comfortable with the idea of going down some on a few games. Like I might go down 0.5 on SteamWorld and Titan Souls. When I think about playing
Mm.
either of those again, I just kind of feel like I might rather go to bed or something instead of turn them back on.
They put you to sleep is what you're trying to say now.
Yeah, it's just like, oh man, I'll just go to bed. I'll do it another day.
I might go even farther down with Titan Souls. I already put it at a 5, so that might be fine. But I could go down to a 6 on SteamWorld Dig, just minor adjustments here and there. I contemplated giving a short hike a 9.5. Almost went that high, but I just don't think it's replayable enough to maybe warrant that. It's a game I'll carry with me for a long time for sure. Soma is another one I had a tough time with. Like I was thinking about 7.5 and 8 and 8.5, and that's why I landed on 8. So given the week or the month, I might, be a little bit cooler or warmer on it. So yeah. And then I feel pretty good about the rest. I also thought about maybe giving a 9.5 to Sifu. I thought about that for a while.
Wow.
I think like in the moment that I was playing Sifu, I was having such a blast with it that I was like, oh, this is like a 9.5, man. And then getting some time away from it, it sort of settles in your mind, That happens a lot to me where I'm like more positive in the moment I'm playing. And then a day or two passes and I realize what I actually feel about it.
Yeah. I think that's what happened to me with SteamWorld and Titan Souls, and I think I was just so stoked to have beaten those like way quicker than I expected. I don't know, but you want me to introduce this one?
Yeah, let's do the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So up next, we want to talk about the top 5 games we played. Our rankings of our individual top 5 lists of games we played this season. They can be any combination of secret or featured games. All 5 can be secret or featured or a mixture. This ranking is sort of an emotional decision based on how we feel today, how we're recording, or maybe last night if we didn't change our notes when we were writing them.
Yeah.
They're totally disregard scores if one of us feels a certain game is their number one because maybe it's more memorable, or maybe it created a specific gameplay moment that stands out the most. That can be enough to make it our number one game. We will go back and forth one at a time, starting with a number 5 and ending with 1. Bopo, how about you start with your number 5?
My number 5 game of season 5 is The Wild at Heart. This is my last secret game of the season, and The Wild at Heart is so imaginative. I said this in the review multiple times. I'll say it again, but it's like Over the Garden Wall meets Pikmin. It is about 2 children getting lost in the woods and using these spritelings to solve puzzles and to help the Green Shields, which is this society of mythical beings trying to, investigate this dark force taking over the forest. And this game is so lush with detail. There are just so many hand-drawn illustrations that feel so intimate and handcrafted. It's beautiful. The characters just pop off the screen. The game also explores some really emotional themes about difficult home lives and feeling connected to others and finding friends. All these themes that just really resonated with me as I was playing. This is a long game. This is like a 8 to 10 hour game, I think, depending on how fast you go. And there are discoveries everywhere. There are secrets everywhere. I actually just cleaned this game up for the platinum this past week, and I had a blast doing that. I was rediscovering every single area and finding secrets that I didn't even know were there before because I went back to those old areas with the new powers that I had, the new spritlings I had, the new abilities I had, and it made me look at the environments in a new way. I think The Wild at Heart is a great adventure game. It's cozy. It's easy to recommend to a wide variety of people. That's why it's my number 5.
All right. And do you want to give yourself a little bit of a ding, a little bit of a bring, a little bit of a trophy sound for getting that platinum?
Oh, sure. I guess I could. I've never given myself one. Let me.
You earn trophies, my friend. You're allowed to.
Yeah. Thank you. So I guess here's my trophy sound. My little celebratory little sound for.
Hooray!
Wait, I don't think that was the right one.
Okay.
DiscoCola. That was the one.
That's the one.
There we go. Thank you.
Nope. That's the PS4 version. You don't get that one.
Well, it was a PS4 game on PS5. So anyway, what's your number 5 of season 5?
My number 5 is Super Crush KO. The game doesn't really have a lot of depth here, and the alien shows up to Earth to dominate the world, steals Chubbs the cat instead, and a hilarious chase ensues. But it comes down to two things, I think. And one is that it's something I already said in this episode already, like action platformer go burr. I had so much fun just beating up some robots. And then while I'm doing that, I'm also staring at my favorite shades and hues of pink and mint green and purple. So I'm just having a good time and my eyes are delighted. It's that straightforward.
Love it. Cool. My number 4 is A Short Hike. A Short Hike is a game that both of us played separately, but we each beat it in one sitting. And this is a game where you are on a vacation, you're a bird, and you're trying to get to the peak of this mountain to get cell phone reception to make an important call. You don't know what that call is. And that question of what this game is ultimately leading to was always in the back of my mind as I'm climbing this mountain and interacting with all these colorful characters and finding golden feathers in many different ways and doing all these miscellaneous activities that are all fun and making me smile and laugh. That question is always in the back of my mind of where are we going in this game? I know I'm going to go to the top of the mountain. That's a given. It's called A Short Hike. I know there's a mountain on this island. I know I'm supposed to get to the top.
But what does the top of the mountain look like?
What does it look like? Yeah. And we get up there, and I think this game has such a beautifully simple ending that is even simpler than I ever could have imagined or expected. But it all works. It works so well. The music is fantastic. The game is emotionally affecting. A lot of awkward dialogue happens in this game that makes me chuckle. These characters, all these animals on this island, are so imperfect in very adorable ways. They have flaws. They have virtues as well. And I just had a great time in A Short Hike. Another one that I cleaned up after I streamed it for that platinum. And I just had a blast with A Short Hike. It's another game I can just easily recommend to almost anyone.
Yeah, I saw you right at the end of that on your stream, and I should have known that this would be on your list. If that wasn't a spoiler, my prediction list for you is just way out of whack.
Yes, we'll get to that in a moment, but we also predict what each other's top 5 will be. We'll talk about that after our lists.
My number 4 is Operation Tango.
Hell yeah.
I think about shouting these absurd sentences back and forth with you. And it was such a delightful time. And then just watching back the VODs that we were able to save is a delight. And I think it goes to show how affecting this is in co-op gameplay and how necessary co-op gameplay is and how you need to really, really trust your comrade on the other end.
That's a game where if you do have the ability to stream it and watch the VOD after, you have even more entertainment waiting for you, especially if you're someone like me who wasn't on the streaming side and I get to like go back and watch what it looks like on your side. But then we swap roles in our second playthrough, and I do actually get to interact with everything you interacted with that first time. And so it was like two experiences in one. I had a ton of fun with you in that game. And it wasn't always like the best presentation wise. It wasn't always my favorite story wise. It was the gameplay that really made that experience worthwhile and doing it with you.
Yeah.
My number 3 of season 5 is Sifu. Sifu is a game that is hard as heck.
Yes.
I had a tough time with this game. And at first you think, gosh, am I even going to be able to finish this game for our recording? Am I even going to be able to talk about this on our show?
Yeah.
You go through the slums and you're getting your butt handed to you, and you realize, well, there's still a boss at the end of this place. And then I have 4 more areas to fight through after this, and they each get harder, and they each have unique enemies to learn the patterns of and a boss to learn the patterns of. But what really made this game work is when I figured out how to be defensive. I figured out how to dodge and avoid and block and parry, and to take my time. It's okay to take your time. You don't have to rush for that high score in this game. I always love practicing things to get better. I like seeing that sense of progress. And now, after many hours of playing this game, I think over 20 hours of playing Sifu, not only to beat the game, but to do some miscellaneous stuff too, I can look back from where I am now, back to that first play session I had, and realize how far I've come. And that's such a powerful feeling. And I feel like a martial arts master. The game makes my hands hurt, but in a good way, because I'm just getting so invested in the game that I'm clutching the controller harder.
Yeah.
And that means the game is working. The game is doing what it wants to do, which is really drawing me into this action experience.
Yeah, I did notice myself also improving over the several hours I've spent, but I'm also not sad that I'm playing in student mode now. So
I think that's amazing that they let
mind.
you do all those tasks in student mode if you want.
Yeah.
I love when games
There
let you do
are
that.
certain like the challenges you unlock after the game. Some of them are locked to disciple or master mode. So there's like some things I won't be able to do now, but
yeah, and both of us played on disciple the first time.
Yes,
which is like the quote unquote normal
mode
difficulty. Yeah, cool.
My number 3 is Downwell.
Oh, nice.
And I have a big update on Downwell. I have still not beat the game.
Oh,
I've tried about another dozen times, and I still haven't beaten it.
The tease.
I know.
The
I was
tease.
like,
you will get there, though.
I will.
You will get
I
there.
will. I had to have been like 2 hits away from beating the game just a couple weeks ago. So
damn.
I know it can happen, and a lot of it's going to be luck when it does, but I know like the perfect build and what I need when I get to the end. I think it's equal parts unfair, but also not insurmountable. And I love the art style. I love its simplicity, and I love that it seems like a truly classic arcade game. Like, I feel like this game probably could have come out 35 years ago with just a couple fewer graphical details, and it would have remained in the pantheon of great arcade games, frustrating arcade games.
It's one of those games where you look at it for 5 seconds and you immediately understand what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, you might not understand like every single mechanic yet, but you get it. You know, it is, you can show it to somebody and they know what you're talking about with this game.
And every single mechanic in that game feeds into the other mechanics. It's a great game. I don't recommend it to everybody because it is hard, but it's very cool.
Well, I hope you can finish it soon. If you ever want to stream it, I think that would be fun for people to watch.
I streamed it one time.
You did stream it? Okay.
It was fun. It was frustrating, and I didn't read chat the whole time. But,
I bet. Yeah. It's one where you like laser focused while you're playing.
But it might be one of those games where I just like turn it on with no intention of completing it on stream and just play it, which I don't do a lot.
Okay.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 game of season 5 is Venba. Venba is one of the most emotionally affecting stories in a game I have played. Venba is about a Tamil immigrant family moving to Canada, and it shows their lives over the course of about 3 decades. You see Venba, this mother and wife. You see Pavelan, her husband, and you see Kavin, their son, sort of grow older. And you see how food and their cuisine of their home country aligns with where they are in their lives. And you see all the struggles that they meet along the way. You see their joys as well. And this game is amazing because it trusts the player to understand little hints and to pick up on clues and to realize that some things will happen off screen and some things will happen suddenly in life. And it is a heartbreaking game. It is a beautiful game. I love the soundscape of Venba. I think this game is one of the most important games to come out in the past 5 or 10 years. I think it's probably the most important game of 2023. You know, we talk about games that are the best of 2023 or the games that are most underrated of 2023, etc. I think when you talk about games that have an important, impactful message and portrayal of a certain kind of people that let us empathize with its characters, I think Venba is up there as the most important game of 2023, at least of the games I have played. So that is why Venba is so high on my list, and I think every single video gamer should play Venba.
No surprise there. I'm looking forward to playing it someday myself.
Awesome.
My number 2 is Electhead.
Wow.
This game just sticks with me in my mind when I think about all of the games that I played this season. I think Electhead's usually the first one that I think of, if I'm being honest, because it just surprised me with how effective it taught you how to play the game, and then how fun it was to actually play the game and control the little robot. And then the endings. I didn't even think about the endings when I put it in number 2, but the 2 various endings you can get in Electhead are just so shocking without being just shock value, I think. I just think Electhead is a great puzzle game, and it's still a fun enough platformer without those great puzzle elements. So, yeah, Electhead. It blends two genres really well and has a great art style to go along with it.
After we recorded that episode where you reviewed it, you put your Switch in my hands and you had me play for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, I forgot that I did that. Yeah.
And it's I don't know how else to say this, but describe it as feeling tactile. Like it just feels really good to control that game.
The little like sounds that the robot makes when he's jumping on the metal platforms just drives that home, I think. So
when I think of this game, I always think about your anecdote about playing it at your in-laws and maybe getting stuck for a moment and trying to look up the solution, but because of where you were, your Wi-Fi or your data wasn't quite fast enough to look that answer up immediately. And so you would just continue playing it and you would figure things out on your own anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the game is just difficult enough that you get a little stuck, but also surmountable enough that you are able to solve it and feel smart.
Yeah, I can defeat the YouTube buffering system in rural redacted state.
Yeah. So I love when games are just that right amount of difficulty, maybe a little too hard in some places, but also you can figure it out and you feel really smart.
All right, Bopo, what is not necessarily your favorite game, but at least your number 1 from season 5?
My number 1 game from season 5 is A Space for the Unbound.
I was already typing it before you finished.
Already typing it. This is a huge surprise for me. You picked this game.
I picked it
for season 5.
This was my passion pick for
this
the season.
This was your passion pick. And I'm not saying you didn't love it or anything, but because you're the one who picked it and because you knew more about it maybe than I did, I wasn't expecting to fall in love with it as much. But what I found in A Space for the Unbound is just checking every box. It is an amazing narrative. It is a thick, like multi-layered, complicated, but also understandable narrative. It is set in Indonesia, and it renders this village with such detail. I love the pixel art in this game. This whole idea of space diving too lets us see all these imaginative representations of people's consciousnesses. This game is always experimenting with different mechanics. There are like little mini games we play. There are lots of different ways to interact with the village and find collectibles. Going for the platinum requires you to be a little methodical, but it really goes to show like how much is hiding in this village. I had very few dislikes with A Space for the Unbound. It made me cry. It's a game that made me weep by the end. It reaches such an emotional climax by the end. And also just like it goes to a place that's of an epic scale that's unlike any other moment from any game too. So it just has all these highs. It's just exceptional. And I can't believe it was made by such a small team. But that team, you can tell, that team of developers at Mojican Studio, they're very passionate about this game. It's a very personal game to them. And it feels like a really specific experience. But sometimes really specific experiences almost feel like more universal.
Yeah.
So this game really hit for me. And I think I want to replay it someday, even though it is a longer game. I don't usually want to do that, but I want to do that for A Space for the Unbound.
Yeah, this studio seems to really have found their way into like the studio what does the really emotional stories, because they did When the Past was around too, right? And you liked that game quite a lot, and it made me interested in that game too, because I think it would tell an effective and emotionally heartrending story.
They have a great ability to start with this nugget of an idea of maybe a relationship between two people. And then how does that relationship expand from there? How does it affect the world around those people? And also, there's a nice little reference to When the Past Was Around in A Space for the Unbound.
Yeah. I don't know that I pointed it out in that episode, but I just want to point out how great the cutscene graphics are in A Space for the Unbound. I don't know that I specifically mentioned that in the episode, but they're beautiful, and I failed to like give them their flowers on that. It looked so cinematic, but it's still just like these 16-bit pixels going across the screen.
Yeah, it looks like something you might see on an NES or SNES, like for story moments, but just done really cleanly, really well. Yeah.
And it just affecting scale in such a great way. Like you're zooming out on a character, and their pixel art looks like you zoomed out instead of, it's hard to explain without seeing it. But
this game reveres animals. This game loves cats. You can pet cats. You can pet tons of different animals in this game. That's another bonus.
Yeah.
I could just keep going. The animations, just the idle animations of characters is so detailed. Like just tons of care put into every inch of this game.
Good stuff. My number one, sometimes I throw little curveballs.
I'm already
at you.
I'm already typing it in.
This one is no surprise. It is Bat Boy.
Nice.
This was my favorite game of the season. The story itself like doesn't stand out the same way that like a Head does. There's nothing like novel for me like Downwell. I don't play a lot of those classic arcade games. This is just the perfect DiscoCola game, and I had way more fun than I expected. It's just great. I just love this action platformer, and it takes stuff from Mega Man, and it takes stuff from Shovel Knight, and it looks good, and it sounds good while you're doing it, and it feels incredible to play. Bat Boy is just a good game, and if you are a fan of action platformers, specifically a fan of Mega Man or Shovel Knight, you have to play Bat Boy.
We will hear about Bat Boy in our next category, which probably isn't a surprise to you. But yeah, hearing you talk about this was such a joy. You just lit up talking about this game, and it's not a surprise being your number one because it was your only game you gave a 10 this season. So.
And that doesn't always necessarily mean anything at the end of the day, but it did this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, great game.
Well, now transitioning to it's kind of like the B-side to this category. I guess it's our predictions for each other's lists. For my predictions for your list, totally nailed Bat Boy being at number one.
Of course.
I thought Super Crush KO would be your number 2.
Ooh,
it was your
okay.
number 5.
Yes.
Alekhead, you put it number 2. I thought it would be your number 3. So I
Okay.
was very close.
Yeah.
I knew you loved that game. I actually thought Soma would be on your list at number 4. It's not on your list at all. And then I had Downwell in there. You had it at number 3. I thought it would be your number 5.
Yeah.
So I totally missed Operation Tango. Instead of Operation Tango, I had Soma in the list. So I got 4 of the 5 games on the list, 1 in the perfect spot.
Yeah, I think you did a lot better than I did.
Okay.
I knew Space for the Unbound would be your number 1.
Cool.
Score is usually a good indicator for how you do at the end of the season.
It is, yeah. Like here, my score perfectly aligns with the order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had Venba at number 2.
Oh, you nailed it. Nice.
Yep, had that one
Cool.
right. I thought that you would put Tabs in here.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought that was your number 3. I knew Sifu would be in here. I had that at number 4.
Oh, you were very close. It was my number 3.
And I thought that maybe there would be just like one sort of unexpected one where it was like the experience made it into the list rather than the score. And I did just sort of put Operation Tango in here at number 5. But I think my runner-up was The Wild at Heart. I did not consider a short hike for your top 5.
Yeah, there were so many high-scoring games for me this season that like you could have swapped out 1 or 2 games and I still would have been happy with my list. And just because Operation Tango isn't in my list doesn't mean I didn't have fun. Again,
I know that.
That's why I made a point to mention that a second ago. It's just there are so many good games.
Yep.
Like I always love playing co-op games with you. So yeah, I think like there are so many great co-op games too that we could pick, and you know, they would make my list just because the game's a little bit more memorable and enjoyable moment to moment. Now it's time for our jealous games. This is focusing only on our secret games. DiscoCola is going to share the game I played for a secret game that he wishes he had picked or wants to play, and I do the same with his secret games. Would you want to share your jealous game first?
Sure. This season, you played so many games that I already wanted to play, including 2 that I already own physical versions for.
I'm so sorry. I had no idea.
You jacked my secret stash. So there are a good many games on here that I will play. But my jealous game may surprise you, but I have to pick this one because I actually have already played it, and it's Dujana.
You've already played it?
I played Dujana on Friday.
Really?
Yeah, I stayed up late and I played through Dujana on Friday.
What do you think of it?
I think I agree with a lot of what you said, actually. I think it's not the most fun game to play at almost any point, like physically to actually play. But I think that instead of finding myself really sad or depressed at the end, like I was kind of hoping for, kind of expecting, I found myself like more angry. Which is also sometimes a satisfying feeling too. But it just was not what I was expecting.
And just to be clear, like angry at the outcome of the story, not anger at the game?
No, not anger at the game, just anger at
the situation,
the topics that are presented in the game.
Interesting.
Which is something that I feel most days anyway. But I expected to feel sad or depressed. But no, instead I want revenge, you know, I
justice, revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the start of the game, and I want to ask you about this during the recording, when I booted up the game, I was given a video from the developer that said, "This video is randomized. You're actually quite lucky to be seeing this. I'm going to tell you the point of this game."
Yes.
I also played this the same time as another one of our friends, and they got the same allegedly randomized video that explains the point of the game.
I remember getting that video too.
So it's okay. That confirms in my mind that is in fact not randomized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But have I played the game, 10 times to confirm that? I have not.
True.
Yeah. So.
But the word that person uses to describe the game is ultimately sort of what I got at certain points. So effectively done. But yet I spent a little bit longer in the arcade section than I wish I would have.
Yeah. So you don't have to do all those arcade games to beat the game. You just need 3 of the tokens.
Yeah.
Maybe
I just really didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah. I did try them all.
Yeah.
They're bizarre.
Yeah. They are varied.
They are, yes. A lot of variety.
I don't think I'll ever play a game with anus in its title ever
pie
again.
or anus. Anus or pie. Very, very strange.
Yeah.
Did you find like the secret hallway in that game though?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, even when I'm like trying so hard to explore everything, I know that there's still stuff that I'm missing because the game's scale is actually way bigger than you expect. But yeah, just like actively physically playing it doesn't feel great, especially in the overworld map.
I didn't mention that in the review, but that was one of my huge complaints was just controlling that bike. You're on like a bike.
A bike. I hate it.
It feels so counterintuitive to what you want to do. Yeah,
I hate controlling that bike, but
I don't mind using an overworld to go to different places.
No, yeah,
it felt
cool.
chaotic as heck.
Yeah, it doesn't drive the way I thought it would. Ultimately, I liked it. I didn't like it as much as I wanted to.
Okay,
is what I would say.
Would you give it a score?
Ooh, what? It does defy score because I think it's an art piece that just happens to be a video game. Like I think I could just as easily watch a pre-recorded gameplay of it in an art installation.
And you'd get the same thing out of it.
I'd get the same thing out of it, except I wouldn't have to physically play it. And maybe
so you might even have a more positive experience, quote unquote positive experience.
So I think it's just something that happens to be a video game.
Yeah, it is art. It does feel like art.
But I don't know. The way it physically feels to play does hurt the score a bit, but it probably a 7.
A 7,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, do you feel like it'll stick with you? Do you feel like it's memorable in that way?
I do, yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't say most people should stream this game.
I would be really curious to see what that game looks like today. Like if he started again today, like a lot of the story beats are unfortunately the damn same.
Relevant.
All the time, apparently. But currently it's one of the more televised devastations of humanity that we've seen in history. So I wonder what that would look like today.
I think it's completely valid to feel anger at the end of this game. I hadn't really thought about that emotion. I still think the game mostly made me just feel like a little hopeless and shattered at the end, but I totally understand why the feeling of what's going on would just elicit anger out of someone.
Well, maybe that has to do with being able to more easily put myself in those shoes just because of having children. I would tear the world down one grain of sand at a time if my child was taken from me. So, how about you? What's your
Bat Boy? Transitioning from that, Bat Boy is my jealous game for season 5. This is an easy pick, but I would love to play a Leckhead, and I think you said Serial Cleaner would be one I'd dig. Trying to think like what would be a runner-up, just because this is such an easy pick this time. Probably a Leckhead.
I think a Leckhead would be the most appropriate for you.
I've played Gorogoa before, and I think I loved it more than you did, maybe a little bit. But yeah, Bat Boy, just because everything you said about it. It's similar to other games that I love. Like it's similar to Shovel Knight, not exactly like Shovel Knight. And Shovel Knight's currently my number 2 indie game of all time. So there you go.
I think it would be a good fit for you.
So those are our jealous games.
All right. Our next section is underrated games. Games that they don't get is a phrase that we use to also describe this. We don't have to have a game here if we don't want to. I do. I assume you do. We usually do.
I do this time.
Yeah.
I do.
So each of us will mention one game, secret or featured, that is either being misunderstood by others who have shared opinions about it, having scores that we feel are too harsh or way too low, or just literally being underplayed and not enough people have played it. So if you want to go first here, Bopo.
My underrated game, or game they don't get for season 5, is Bonfire Peaks. This was my first secret game for the season, and I'm putting this game in this category simply because I don't think enough people have played this game. Do I think the game is an absolute masterpiece? No. But do I think it is a game that knows exactly what emotion it wants to be, that is a very good puzzle game? Yes. This game is about burning your possessions in all these levels where you're just a guy with a box of possessions and you see a bonfire and you need to figure out how to get the box to that bonfire. But the game has very specific rules. This game stumped me over and over again. I was just in awe of how small the level could be, how simple a level could look, but also how complicated it could be. And I didn't mind looking up solutions to solve some of the more complex things. But on top of that, it has an overworld that's sort of a meta game where you are picking up boxes in the overworld to place down and to climb to new places to reach new levels where you experiment with new fundamentals of
Very
puzzle
cool.
solving.
Yeah.
The game has a very distinct art style, and it is a game that is meditative and sort of lonely, not really in a depressing way, but just in a thoughtful way, in a reflective way. It made me kind of reflect on my own past. It feels like this guy is reckoning with the past and figuring out where he wants to go from there.
Mhm.
And he's climbing up and up this mountain, which is a theme we see in lots of games with really powerful stories. This game doesn't tell an explicit story, but I think the storytelling is really interesting because we're getting everything visually.
Yeah.
So that's why I think Bonfire Peaks is an underrated game. I just want more people to play it. It just seems like not many people have played it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I still don't know if I have the mental endurance to get on board, but I've noticed looking through Steam reviews, especially in the season of the puzzle, that a lot of puzzle fans are looking for more than just a puzzle. Like, that has to have that substance. It has to have that depth now.
Yeah.
And if it can tell a self-reflective story as well as you describe it, then I think a lot of puzzle fans should probably play Bonfire Peaks.
I would recommend to you, Disco, and anybody who's fairly interested in Bonfire Peaks to just look up like 10 minutes of gameplay. Just watch like the first handful of levels or look up a playthrough and just kind of skip to maybe a third of the way through and just look at what's going on in this game. I think you'll appreciate what's going on. What is your underrated game?
My underrated game is easily Bat Boy. I think a majority of the people who have played it really like it, but in this case, it is criminally underplayed. Like, maybe in part it's because this game is still less than a year old, but at the time of recording, this game has like fewer than 100 reviews on Steam. That is appalling to me. That's
insane, dude.
Yeah,
that is insane.
If nothing else at all, it feels great to play. Like, what are you guys doing out there? Play Bat Boy. Like, if you like Mega Man or Shovel Knight or good video game music or just fun platformers, this game is for you. You don't have to like more than one of those categories. It's just fun.
Nice.
Play it.
I will someday. Our next category is the inverse of that previous category. It's overrated games or games we don't get. And we say it's games we don't get because we understand our opinion isn't fact at the end of the day. You know, it is just maybe we're mistaken. Maybe we're the ones who just don't understand why games are so popular or well received. So we understand there might be a fault with us. And again, having an entry here is optional. The way we interpret this can be incredibly subjective, but we can mention a game from this past season that's something along the lines of being overpraised by others who have talked about it. Maybe it has review scores we don't agree with, or it just seems to be overenjoyed by people in a way that doesn't make sense to us. Did you have an overrated game?
I do have an overrated game.
Okay.
For me, and I'm so sorry, Blobfish Man, if you're still listening, it's got to be Tabs.
Yeah.
It's really simple in this case. I just found the gameplay to be really stale really quickly, and I know that there is more for the people who enjoy it, but even that extra stuff just like doesn't grip me as a concept either. I just didn't have fun with it, and it's really that it's that simple.
My overrated game or game I don't get is Titan Souls. And it's not like it's not a super passionate pick because I think Titan Souls has its share of critics who maybe aren't impressed with it, but coming from Acid Nerve, who made Death's Door, even though it is the game that came before, I was expecting a little bit more. And I just noticed that people praise this game. I saw a couple reviews where people said that it was one of their favorite games. I simply don't understand that. I found the game's world really hard to get into. I thought there were long stretches of just walking around, not sure where to go. It's hard to navigate to where you need to go. It can be ruthless in its difficulty without throwing me back in a way that's encouraging. I feel punished every time I die in the game, and I'm not really getting sucked into the lore and the story because it's kind of nebulous, and you have to read into things and make hypotheses about what's going on. That's not always my favorite thing to do. So some of that's a me problem, but I just didn't find it engaging. It didn't wow me.
Yeah, I think I attribute a lot of that to, and I'm generalizing here, but a lot of people will take either long game equals good or really hard game equals good, sort of a thing. That's probably not the case for everybody that really loves it.
There is a sense of satisfaction for beating a really hard boss. I totally understand that. But I find that feeling more rewarding in games that do virtually everything that this game is doing better. Games that have more interesting worlds, better movement, more interesting discovery, a better story, a narrative that I care about. I find all that stuff elsewhere, I think.
Yeah. Narrative really fell flat. I agree with you there for sure. All right. So our next topic here on this reflective episode of Underplayed is the biggest surprises. An example might be, I didn't know this game was going to be this long, or I didn't expect this to happen, or I didn't expect to feel like this. I didn't expect this character to do X thing. Yeah. Can be any number of things. You can choose up to 5. We don't have to have 5. How about you go first, and we'll go back and forth, Popo.
Okay, and my first one is from the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. There are lots of sequences in this game, lots of outcomes you can explore, lots of endings you can get. It's hard to pick a biggest surprise from this game. I was kind of between two, but I'm going with the skip button sequence in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. I won't say a ton about this, but this is where you find a skip button that advances time in the game. And we go forward a little bit, and then we go forward a little bit more. We can keep pressing that button, and eventually we're going forward a lot of time.
Yeah.
And we're listening to the narrator sort of react to this passage of time. Stanley himself is a silent protagonist, so we don't really get to hear anything from him. All of what we're getting from this section is coming from the narrator, and also coming from silence and what we notice about the facility and what's happening to the facility around us. I'm starting to get goosebumps.
I see them.
I'm starting to get goosebumps
wow.
thinking about it. This sequence was incredible, and I did not expect this kind of feeling to come from this goofy game where this narrator is just making me laugh almost every other sequence.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's a great pick.
Thank you. What's your first surprise?
My first one, the extent to which Homebody is a puzzle game. I expected it to be a horror survival game first and foremost, but you are in fact, one, required to die. You cannot beat the game without dying at least once, and it is through puzzles that you move the game forward. So it is, first and foremost, in my opinion, actually a puzzle game. And then a survival horror game.
So playing into our seasonal theme of puzzles, another puzzle game. I if I looked at the trailer for this, I might just think it's a straight like psychological horror game or like survival horror game.
Yeah. There's a lot of like really trippy stuff in that trailer. So you would not be wrong to think that it was, sort of this like psychological mess. But
yeah, it's time loop game. Time loop games are kind of inherently puzzle games. Like it's a subgenre, if you will. My next surprise is how the story continues near the end of Hypnospace Outlaw. This is something I alluded to when I reviewed the game. Basically, the game Hypnospace Outlaw has what feels like an ending, and then the game has sort of an epilogue, but it's not even an epilogue because it is substantial. You're still playing Hypnospace Outlaw for a good amount of time and rediscovering people from your first few sections of the game in a new way and interacting with this world in a new way through hypnospace. Again, this is a game where you're interacting with basically a computer screen. You're interacting with an online space, clicking on things, searching for things, finding breadcrumbs from one clue to the next to report crimes on an internet space. And I was just shocked at how much this game had waiting for me after I thought it was done.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I'll keep it at that.
Keep it at that.
Yeah.
My next one is Operation Tango's challenge mode actually being relatively approachable compared to some parts of the main game, which ended up being super stressful.
Nice.
So I appreciate and was surprised that we were actually able to beat the challenge mode in one stream, and even a shorter stream compared to some of our other Operation Tango streams.
Now, how much of the approachability do you attribute to the game being like thoughtful and careful in its difficulty setting? And how much do you attribute to us having played through the base game 2 times and just getting practice with all the different systems?
Well, a lot of it does have to do with the fact that we played the game 2 times, sure.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to do anything quite as crazy as the Sayonara Wild Hearts level, as we like to call it.
That's fair. Yeah.
So I still feel like it was much more approachable. We didn't have to descend a ventilation shaft and cut strange wires that trigger an alarm.
Right.
Yeah. It took the more simple puzzles and the more puzzles that require communication and describing just simple objects above anything else, I think.
It does the stepping stone thing really well.
Yeah.
From challenge mode level 1 to challenge mode level 10, like by the time we get to level 10, it barely resembles what we were doing in level 1, but level 1 to level 2, I can make that leap. Level 2 to 3, I can make that leap. And so you can draw the line from 1 to 10 and see how we got from that first point to the end.
It's a Celeste B-side situation for me. I really liked it. So
sweet.
What's your next one?
My next surprise is all of Dujana. Like, this was hard to like pick one, but just like what this experience is. This is a woman looking for her lost family who went out to bury their dead hamster. And we discover all these NPCs talking about death and life and purpose and meaning. And it's all done in such an abstract way, in an experimental way, in an artful way. We've already talked about this with our jealous game section. But just how do you like predict anything that happens?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I go into it a little bit more in our review from earlier in the season, but you've now played the game. You can probably attest to this too, that it's just surprise after surprise about what you're going to see and even like hear. This game has a very experimental soundscape going on. People
turn into spiders like it's a normal thing that happens to people.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's like magical realism. Crazy things happen and nobody notices or cares or wonders why, except the player.
Yeah.
So it's hard to narrow down to one moment. I feel good about picking all of Dujana as a biggest surprise because it is it's a relatively shorter experience. So it kind of just feels like something you sit down to play maybe once and it all sort of hits you at once. And that's the whole surprising moment for me.
That's crazy. This one's a little bit of a cheat and just the craziest coincidence. This is actually, my next surprise is actually from one of your games.
Really?
But expecting to feel super sad and disturbed with Dujana and instead finding myself more angry at the state of the world than I already am.
Wow. I think this is the first time you've like reached across and like picked a moment from one of my games.
Yeah, I'm asking for forgiveness and not permission here, as if that's like an okay part of our rule set.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I said it already, but I was ready to cry, and I did, but it quickly turned to anger. I'm instead clenching my fists. You get that zoom out at the end, which is an emotional moment, but as you zoom out more and more, that quickly changes to anger for me.
Yes.
Especially with the state of the world as it is. at the time of recording. So yeah, I didn't expect that. So
I'm understanding more and more about the anger and stuff. And it's a different kind of sadness for me at the end of Dujana because I'm not like crying. I'm just like, I'm numb by that point because of how much I've seen, it feels, I feel like I can't do anything for the rest of the day after playing
That's
it.
true.
That's a different kind of sorrow.
Yeah, it's like overeating, and you're just like,
Yes.
you have that pit at the bottom of your stomach. You just don't want to move, but you're like too full to go to sleep. It's nuts. What's your next one?
My next surprise is the end of Soma. The end of Soma is a moment where Simon and Catherine are kind of two main characters, are reaching the end of their journey. We've been with these characters for many hours, and now here's the culmination, here's the climax, here's everything they've worked toward. And I won't say what happens, but the kind of outcome is it's kind of like Dujana, where like I just feel hopeless in a way. This game ends with a gut punch. I feel just traumatized almost by what happens to these people. I'm amazed that Frictional Games swung for this ending, that they made it work. The performance of the characters really sells it. They're giving it their all.
Good.
So it's also like a really good, like it could go in a my favorite moments category. But here it's surprising because I have this expectation the whole time of what's going to happen to these characters, and that's not what happened.
Yeah, rock on. My next one is the secondary ending of Elec Head. This ending is achieved by finding all of the collectibles and then locating the secret room to trigger that ending. But compared to the primary ending, which it is similar to, this one is upsetting and nefarious and just has this incredible gravity to it for what is otherwise just like a mostly lighthearted, delightful puzzle game. But it doesn't feel like it's totally shock value for the sake of shock value. So it
still makes sense. It still feels, it doesn't feel like a stretch to get
right.
there.
You're a robot, an electrified robot in a strange facility. So like this is potentially a logical conclusion of that. And just because it's portrayed in this lighthearted way with bouncy music underneath doesn't necessarily mean that this isn't the logical conclusion of your journey.
That's a surprise for me to hear about. That's crazy. Wow. My last surprise for season 5 is the off-screen story developments we get in Venba. There's a lot of on-screen storytelling in Venba that shows us what happens to this family. And this game is chapterized, right? There are like half a dozen or so chapters where we're moving multiple years between all the chapters. And so when you're talking about a family of 3, especially with a kid growing up, growing older, there are going to be lots of changes when you move from the first chapter to the second chapter, and we're moving ahead years and years and years at a time. And so sometimes things happen between those chapters, and we get a little hint of what might have happened at the start of the next chapter. We might not always understand what happened, or we might start theorizing about what happened just based on a quick visual that we're given. But then things are given more context later, and then we truly understand what happened. And in some ways, that makes those story developments land even harder with more emotion.
Yeah, I happened to be watching another friend of ours stream it, and it was the chapter jump between Kavin going to college and then seeming to have graduated or like currently in college.
Yeah.
And that chapter starts with just like one object on the screen.
Yeah.
And immediately I was like, oh, I know what happened.
Yes.
And it was really effective, and it was really also interesting to see that sort of like cascade of realization in the Twitch chat and on the streamer, just like as everybody started to put it together.
Yeah. And there are parts with reading text messages too, that it's sort of stuff that happens off screen. They're referencing things that we didn't see happen. We're just getting it all in this history of text messages. And sometimes you read between the lines of these text messages and you understand, oh, this is how this character is treating this other character. This is how this character has advanced in their career or in their life now. And it feels very organic in that way. It feels like, maybe you found someone's phone and you're scrolling through the phone and you're able to theorize and like be correct about what happened in their lives.
Yeah. My last one, I mentioned this in the episode where we covered the secret game. I mentioned that this would be on the list. And it is a little bit of a spoiler, so maybe skip ahead 90 seconds to 2 minutes. But the last world of 2D and Top D, where our characters transcend the limitations of their perspective and move into a 3D world, just ended up creating one of the most enjoyable parts of the game. You play in the same way, but also you play in a totally different way. And this was just like a huge surprise to me. I didn't know that, one, this was going to happen. I didn't know what it was going to look like when it did. And I didn't expect it to be my favorite part of the game once I started playing it.
Wow.
Because it was. I'm typically a 2D is my preference, but this was a 3D section of the game, and it was really fun. It was a lot more fun.
I love when games end really strong.
Yeah.
Like this game ends strong. That's great. And speaking of like favorite moments, it's time for our favorite moments section. This is where we can choose up to 5 again. And this is from all the games we played for season 5. We're listing moments that were our favorites. This could be a moment that happens in the story. This could be a combat encounter. This could be, vanquishing a foe that gave us a really tough time, or just like getting an item that's awesome to use. Any moment that was our favorite from any of the games. DiscoCola, how many favorite moments did you pick?
I always come prepared with the maximum and
you
adjust.
Have 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have my less passionate picks.
Okay.
So
I have 5 as well. Mine are still in like chronological order from when I played them. What is your first favorite moment?
My first favorite moment is clearing Titan Souls. Like you and Oni mentioned in Sifu, there was this just sense of accomplishment, and where Titan Souls has a lot more just luck at play here. I was learning a little bit about timing each time I faced a boss, and getting that final boss gave me a little bit of that sense of accomplishment you were both talking about for Sifu. So for me, just defeating the soul and even the golem before it, I don't remember anybody's name.
Oh yeah.
But that golem before
Goal
it was,
set or whatever
just really put me through the ringer. Defeating that felt great, and then defeating the final boss felt really good too.
Yeah, it's tough. I had to look up how to beat that final boss.
The window is so small, dude.
I know.
I knew how to do it, but I was just like,
mine was more about like just looking up the patterns so that I wouldn't have to learn it while trying to survive. I just wanted to look up a video of, I want to see someone beating this so I can see what it looks like when I'm supposed to shoot
that
the
makes
arrow.
sense. Yeah.
My first favorite moment was anytime I found a secret unit in tabs. We talked about this a little bit in our episode about tabs, but in tabs, I'm doing battle after battle. I'm putting units down on the battlefield, and I'm getting a little fatigued when I do that maybe half a dozen times in a row. But all these different maps have secret units that you can find. They're like little glowy spots with maybe like a weapon in little nooks and crannies, and you can zoom the camera around in the first person and just try to find them. I loved that. It was a fun little scavenger hunt. It was a fun little, hide and seek kind of game. And it was so different than the main activity of placing the units and then watching units battle. It broke up the battles in a way that kept me wanting to play tabs more and more. And on top of that, you get a new unit to try in another level. You get to build out that secret army, which has some of the most interesting units in the game that add a lot of dynamism to what's going on. So that's why finding secret units in tabs is one of my favorite moments.
Rock on.
What's your next one?
This is a few moments from the same game, but many of the moments from our Soma playthrough were really quite memorable for me, specifically at the party.
Yeah.
And like moments from Grant finally finding the fluid and guessing the game like an hour in, all the way to Alex's phone reminders, throwing me through a loop, not just in the moment that we shared in that episode, but throughout the entirety of the party, because all of his ringtones are the same as my ringtones. So I was just like thrown through a loop the whole time. So just multiple moments from our Soma playthrough and just being together in that room This party was especially memorable for me this
Yeah,
time.
it was one of my favorite Halloween parties we've done. And to be able to play a game that we could also review on Underplayed and record the room for and get some of those sound bites to throw into our episode made it extra special for me. My next favorite moment was when we descend from the top of the mountain at the end of a short hike. This is at the end of the game. Spoilers, you make it to the top of the mountain. I don't think that's a huge spoiler because, like, the game's about climbing a mountain.
Claire gives up. That's the twist in
Claire
the game.
goes home. There will be a sequel. No, there won't. But, Claire does her thing. I won't spoil what happens with the story, but when we get to fly down the mountain, the end music is so beautiful. I was just gently floating down the mountain, spiraling around it, letting that music just build and build. What I think is really confident about that ending is I don't think the credits play while you're falling down the mountain. They only play when you return to the cabin that you're staying in.
Yep.
The game just lets us take in these great visuals, this great landscape, and the great soundscape as well. So I just love how everything is pulled together in a very artful and beautiful way at the end of a short hike.
So my next one is playing Super Crush KO at 4 a.m. before work and getting to like World 2 and just wishing I could just keep going, but it's time for work, so I have to stop. This is before I changed my work schedule back in December or something. Yeah, I just wanted to keep going. I never wanted to stop. I just wanted to see it through to the end because it's not a huge game. It's not super long, but it's long enough that I can't beat it all in just 1 hour session, you know?
Sometimes we get that really solid amount of time to just keep playing a game as much as we want. And we sort of feel fulfilled from that, right? We feel really good that we were able to just play a game for 6 hours straight, 8 hours straight, whatever. Sometimes having that little carrot on the end of the stick of, oh, I get to play this game later, and it kind of lives in your mind for the rest of the day or the rest of the weekend, whatever, that can almost be better because the game is really overtaking your every thought. It's living with you.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that going on with Super Crush KO. And what's your next one?
My next one is when I was doing a speed run of Kaze and the Wild Masks for a PlayStation trophy. I had to play Kaze and the Wild Masks technically 3 or 4 times just to get all the trophies. There are tons of different collectibles. There's just beating the whole game, and then you have to find all the letters. You have to find all the secret bonus rooms, get all the green crystals, do some miscellaneous activities. Well, then the game asks you to speed run the game. And by this point, I knew all the levels inside and out. I think the trophy is for beating the game in 2 hours or less on a fresh save file, right?
Okay.
And it's around 34 levels, I want to say. And some of those are boss levels too. And you can die, and everything, but that is part of your time. If you die, it slows you down. It adds to your time. Every time you die, you have to start from the last checkpoint. But by this point, I was so good at Kaze and the Wild Masks that I just felt like a really good video game player. I didn't feel like an AGDQ speedrunner or anything like that, but the game is built around this idea of sight reading levels and just finding the momentum and the rhythm of bouncing and climbing and gliding, all this stuff. I was doing that in every level, and it just felt really good. I was just sailing through the game, and I just felt really powerful playing this game at that point. What's your next favorite moment?
Perfect. My next one is figuring out really challenging Electhead puzzles before rural fiber optic internet was able to load YouTube and guide me on my tablet. So that feeling of being a smart boy for a minute, I was just like, oh, I beat the YouTube buffering to the solution of the puzzle, and it just it made me so happy. It made me proud, and I felt really good about myself for a minute.
Good job, Disco.
Thank you.
Nicely done. You showed me that really tough puzzle when you put the game in my hand.
Yeah.
The one that neither of us could figure out for a second. You had forgotten the solution, and 2 minds on the game couldn't figure it out. So the game gets hard.
It does. Yeah, I did forget. I think I pulled it back up as soon as I got home from that recording. I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is and I did do it. But
Cool.
yeah. What is your last one?
Second to last.
Second to last one?
My second to last favorite moment from season 5 is, now this is where I'm going to mention Operation Tango, completely owning at the challenge mode with you in Operation Tango. This was just so satisfying, and it's such a relief when you go into a challenge thinking it's going to kick your ass, and then you kick its ass. That's what we did.
Yeah.
So that's why it's one of my favorites.
My next one is also playing Operation Tango with my best friend.
Nice.
And most specifically, shouting things that out of context sound absolutely stupid, like saying rhombus, top left, bottom right, and feet on both sides the same width as the head. And just like totally clicking. This is an incredible example of the power of friendship, overcoming great odds. It's the most overdone anime trope of all time, but it's real life. And apparently the power of friendship can move Operation Tango to the end of the game. I don't know if it can move mountains, but it can move Operation Tango to its conclusion.
It can defuse a bomb without a timer on it.
Yes.
My last favorite moment is when Rhea faces her fears at the end of A Space for the Unbound. This is when the game reaches its emotional climax. This is the moment I'm mostly talking about when tears are streaming down my face. We re-encounter ideas and characters from the previous, 8 to 10 hours of story. And it just all culminates in a way that I didn't see coming, that really affected me. And it's a moment I will think about for a very long time.
Okay, so our next section, we've got a couple more left. This is another up to 5. Choose up to 5. It's favorite characters. So we can each select up to 5 favorite characters. Again, I always pick 5, and
I have 5.
Okay. If you want to go first, it's your turn to start.
My first favorite character is the narrator from the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. And I think it's really simple to make this pick because I think without the narrator, this game wouldn't be the game that it is. It would just be so forgetful without this specific guy and this specific voice. The way he tricks us, mocks us, laughs at us, gets frustrated by us, and then retaliates. All these different endings show a slightly different side of this narrator's personality. This narrator isn't just playing one guy. It can feel like he's playing a couple dozen different people. Almost like Disco Elysium, how we have all those different personality traits as like our skills. Like this guy feels like he has tons of different personalities informing what he says, and they're each trying to take over at different moments.
Yeah.
And so I find that really fascinating. The narrator's my first favorite character. What's your first favorite character?
My first favorite character is actually picked for a similar reason. It's a little bit of a cheat here. I'm going to say 2 people. But Mira and BK, in my mind, they kind of come as a package deal. And I think they're so hilarious. And I think without them, Donut County is nowhere near the game that I know and love. I think the game lives and breathes on Mira and BK's friendship.
Heck yeah. I can just skip ahead a little bit. I was going to mention it third, but I was going to say BK in Donut County, but I kind of agree with you that Mira and BK go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mira works for BK. They're also best friends. BK is the reason we have a lot of the conflict because he's just sort of unknowingly sending all these people into the underground. And it's all because he wants to earn enough points on this app to earn a quadcopter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a goofy premise. But then even when he's confronted by these people in like the most chill tribunal you've ever seen, he is still like just totally oblivious to the gravity of what he's done, even though he's now part of it, which is just hilarious.
Yeah.
And then Mira is just so cool. I like that these two contrast really well, that they're best friends. And just like a human being best friends with a raccoon is really funny to me. So
I agree.
Yeah, that's a great mutual pick there. How about you share your next one?
I'm going to cheat again, and I'm going to say 2D and Top D. Again, they're sort of a package deal.
Yeah.
I did allude to it in the recording, but this is like the Bert and Ernie sort of situation, and I kind of love that. 2D is obnoxious and impatient. Top D is grounded, and the serious boy that 2D needs to get to the end of the game. So another package deal, but very delightful to watch the two interact with each other. What's
Hell
your
yeah.
next one?
My next one is Alba in Alba, A Wildlife Adventure.
Mm,
What I love about Alba, A Wildlife Adventure is that it is a game about children helping a village. Like this little girl, Alba, is saving the wildlife, is restoring lots of structures, is just looking out for people and trying to help them and trying to document nature. All these really noble things, and it's a kind of character we look up to. It's a kind of character the adults are grateful for, and that's so refreshing. Alba is adorable and is kind-hearted and is just a character that I adore because I get to play as her, you know? That just feels really nice that I as the player get to play as such a noble, kind-hearted person.
perfect. I actually bought that game the other night, so
Amazing.
I will be playing it eventually.
Amazing. I think you will love it.
Okay, my next one. I'm cheating a third time.
That's fine. That's totally fine.
Kyoko and Misako. This is another inseparable pair. Also, incidentally, another sort of Bert and Ernie kind of thing. Misako is down to business, short fuse, moves the exposition forward, while Kyoko adds levity and empathy for our characters that are, in reality, actually kind of violent youths, and I wouldn't actually want much to do with them. It adds a lot of fun to the tone of the game.
My next favorite character is Spooky Peter in Speed Dating for Ghosts. This is one of the ghosts you can date in Speed Dating for Ghosts, and he's so different than all the other ghosts in that he is the oldest ghost. I think he died in the 1600s from the bubonic plague, which is a pun I didn't make or notice when we reviewed this game, but I think that's intentional. But Spooky Peter was like a plague doctor in real life, was a doctor working on these patients suffering from this plague and succumbed to the plague himself. And his manifestation in the afterlife is this ghost that has like a long curved nose that looks like a plague doctor mask. And I love his design. And just that he has all this lore behind him. He's this notorious ghost. He's this ghost that's had legends written about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I remember correctly, he's not actually named Peter, or he didn't name himself Spooky Peter. That's sort of the title that has been given to him by authors and people who chase ghosts and things like that. So he's famous in the ghost world. You get to hear about that history when you speed date with him. So I think he's just one of the more interesting, like adventurous characters that you get to meet in that game.
I might change one of my surprises for the season to have Speed Dating for Ghosts appeared in the favorite characters section. But, my next one is Atma from Space for the Unbound. I think Atma is just a good guy, but not like a good guy TM, just like legitimately a kind
nice guy.
and compassionate guy. I think it really shows. And I think obviously the game doesn't exist without Atma meeting Nirmala in some like unexpected, fateful encounter. So it shows just how these people can walk in and out of our lives and make an impact. And I think Atma's a good manifestation of that.
That's a very good pick. I thought about picking either Atma or Raya from A Space for the Unbound. But for my last spot in my list, I'm going with a twofer, kind of like you did. I'm doing Wake and Kirby in The Wild at Heart. These are the two children. We play as both of them, and I sympathize with these characters. I want the best for them. They are just wanting better lives for themselves. The whole purpose of venturing out into the deep woods is to escape their troubled home lives, and we see glimpses of that in their dreams. But on top of that, like they're heroic. They interact really well. They're great best friends. So I love to see that on the screen.
Perfect. My last one, and maybe this will frustrate you, and just because she's last doesn't mean she is my favorite, but my pick here is Catherine from Soma. I think as far as all of the characters I've seen this season, she is probably the most responsible adult in the room. She does what needs to be done for the greatest good for the most amount of people and still manages to offer empathy at the absolute most important moments. She is scrappy, she's adaptable, and she's intelligent. And I really appreciate her for the sake of mankind.
When Catherine talks to us in Soma, especially after long stretches of doing something harrowing like escape from a monster or whatever, it is very refreshing. It's a relief to have that voice to guide Simon. So like I do agree that she is a great voice to hear in that game. And now our favorite storytelling. This is where we choose one game that has our favorite writing or narrative that sticks with us. What is your favorite storytelling from season 5?
I am immediately going to go back to Soma here again. Even though I don't get the same exhilaration from the reveal that I did the first time, I think the reveal here is still really important, and the way that the ending is voice acted is still gut-wrenching. I just think that this game really excels in this category, if none of the other categories in this season. I think Soma does a really great job with writing and narrative.
It's so interesting how we like lean on either just the writing or the narrative. Like I feel like I always kind of weigh the moment to moment writing versus the overall narrative a little bit differently, but I'm going for just the overall story here. My favorite storytelling was A Space for the Unbound.
Shocker.
Yeah. I don't think I need to really say anything. I've already kind of explained it, but yeah, go play A Space for the Unbound if you haven't already.
Our next one is favorite visuals. I'm so pleased to introduce this one. This is one that really draws me into games. So it's really as simple as that. What is the visual style or graphic style that we loved the most this season? And you can start with this one, Bopo.
My favorite visuals from season 5 come from Soma.
Whoa!
Soma had my favorite visuals. I had to think about this one a long time. A lot of games were vying for this spot, but if I think about Soma, what elevates that game to being good or even great in my mind is just how immersive everything is. If you think about all the different areas of that game, how dark things are, how confident it is in its darkness and not showing us certain things while it shows us other things, and playing with lighting and being underwater versus inside the facility, all of it has so much fidelity and purpose and detail. There are times where interacting with a computer or a panel or something is a little nebulous. It's a little vague as far as like, what button do I press? What lever do I push? But I think it can kind of be a little confusing about what to do because there is so much detail. We talked about this in our review of the game, but all of the science fiction stuff feels plausible by the time this game takes place. And so there's a lot of imagination. There's a lot of thoughtfulness behind what's possible in the next 90-ish years with where our technology is now versus where it could go, especially with an underwater facility, which is a thing I've seen before in games, but never quite like this in Soma.
I think one thing that really stands out for me in those visuals is how easily it would have been for the developers to reuse objects multiple times over and over and over, but how very few things look the same at all. It's all very different from the last similar place you were.
Yes, totally.
It's very impressive. They didn't have to put that much care into it, but they sure heckin' did.
They sure did.
My favorite visuals this season come from River City Girls. I'm a sucker for the 16-bit style pixel art. But on top of that, the hand-drawn portions in this game are just dripping with great character design. I think WayForward really outdid themselves here. They made delightful character designs that simultaneously look straight out of a great anime. It's grounded, but it still looks like an anime that is like not how normal people would dress from day-to-day life. So it does both, and it also has incredible 16-bit graphics that I just adore.
Just watching the trailer that you send me while you're reviewing this game, you can just tell it's a stunner. It's just, I love the character animations. And now, our final category, our favorite soundscape. Selecting from all the games we played, we are going to each pick a game with our favorite sound. when it comes to music and or sound design and or voiceover performance. DiscoCola, what's your favorite soundscape from season 5?
In this category, I have to say River City Girls again.
Wow.
I think I do want to shout out Alekhead and Sifu. They do a lot more in terms of like sound effects, so I do want to just honorable mention here for them. They did a great job with sound effects. But River City Girls just has such incredible music from Megan McDuffie, and I love it so much. I spent most of the last couple weeks just like listening to it in my off time, which I haven't had a lot of, but the times that I have had, I've been listening to River City Girls soundtrack. So
I love that.
great stuff. Love it so much. What is your favorite soundscape?
My favorite soundscape is from Venba. Venba has amazing music and sound design. The sound designer, Neha Patel, is someone I'm a big fan of now because I can tell she really puts a lot of care into her craft. There's a lot of authenticity with how this game uses music. Like, we follow this family over the course of 30 years, and we hear Tamil music that matches each of those years and decades. We have a radio that gets turned on before each meal is cooked, and we hear a different song with a slightly different style. And so we're getting introduced to music and instrumentation that I personally am not as familiar with. So I'm learning a little bit more about this culture through sound. And then also when it comes to cooking the meals, there is the sound of the stainless steel appliances. There's the crackling and the boiling of things that just sounds like it's right there in your ears. I recommend people play this game with headphones on because I think it'll just be like even more immersive. So yeah, Venba blew me away with its sound. And that is my favorite soundscape. And with that, that's our final category for our season 5 recap and reflection. We did it.
Hooray!
Hooray! DiscoCola, awesome job this season, as always.
You as well. Thank you so much for another great 20 games on your end and 20 games on my end.
This is always such a joy. But yeah, thank you very much for doing this with me, and it's always a pleasure. And now we will move on to the next part of this episode, which is planning season 6.
Yeah, what's gonna happen next in the show? What's gonna happen next in the show? What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen next in the what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen next in the show?
So planning the next season requires some ground rules to be mentioned up top, and let's do this together, DiscoCola. This is going to be a very messy, complicated, like unprofessional discussion. This is like the least planning that we do, other than like picking the games we want to pick for the next season of any episode. But basically, we have to pick 10 featured games for season 6. We each come prepared with a handful of games we want to play for season 6, and maybe with some backup picks in case our first choices don't get picked. I usually have like a gimmick where I pick a game I really want to play, a game I really don't want to play, a game from this year, just to help spice things up. I didn't really do that this time.
Oh, really?
I was going to do an even more unhinged version of that, but I just have picks here.
Okay.
We also have some guests planned for season 6, and those guests have picked some games already from our master list of featured games to play. So we already know a couple of games we will play for season 6, which is nice. And yes, we do have a master list of featured games that both DiscoCola and I have vetted to play and review someday as featured games on Underplayed. One of us needs to pick a co-op game so that we can stream it on Twitch and just get experience playing more games together in a co-op fashion. It is DiscoCola's turn to pick a co-op game for season 6. What am I missing? We should ideally try to pick a good variety of games genre-wise. So I shouldn't come prepared with like all Metroidvanias, and DiscoCola shouldn't come prepared with all simulation games.
Right.
That would be kind of boring. We want to mix it up.
Yep. I guess mostly because of my own limitations, I have to be able to play the game. Like we have to own the platform that it's available on, and it
Yes.
has to perform at a way that allows for us to play the game. And then it's not a rule, but we take into account how long a game takes to beat as well.
Yes.
Um,
And then as we go, we'll also describe each game. We'll maybe pull up the games on Steam and talk about them a little bit. We'll put them in the list unsorted, and then we'll find a logical order to review the games as well. We can announce our 2 guest games at the end.
Yep.
So we each will pick 4 games. DiscoCola, since you're picking the co-op game, you're a little bit more limited with one of your picks. Why don't you pick the first game? Does that sound fair? Or is
Yeah,
it more fair for me to pick? I don't know.
No, I think that makes sense. Let's
Okay.
just go ahead and do the co-op one, since that one is a given that we have to do.
Or did you want to save the co-op one for last? Because
No.
I think we saved. Okay,
No, I
Co-op.
don't want to.
co-op first.
Yep. I brought 2. I have some categories kind of, and I brought 2 for each one. I'm going to pick the one that I want to play more. It might be a little bit longer, and it's hard for us to like get together and play a co-op game. And I believe this has to be couch co-op. I'm not 100% on that, so it does make that a little bit harder. But of the ones we have vetted, I want to play Castle Crashers the most.
Awesome. Castle Crashers
Remastered specifically.
Remastered,
but
yeah. Let's call it Castle Crashers Remastered for now. And then let's look this up on Steam. This game was originally released over 10 years ago. Hack, slash, and smash your way to victory in this award-winning 2D arcade adventure from the Behemoth. The Behemoth is known for other games we've played, like Battle Block Theater. I don't know if you played that.
I haven't. They're also known for Alien Hominid, which
Alien
I also
Hominid?
haven't played.
I tried Alien Hominid a long time ago, just for like a minute. But yeah, both of us have played Castle Crashers. For me, it's been a long time, but it'll be fun to play that. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that game. I've played it a little bit more recently, just to try and clean up some PS3 trophies. But
Now,
I know that I like that game, and it would be fun to play with.
now something to consider. Now, this could be just something we noodle on after this recording. I know you can play up to 4 players
Mhm.
local. We could play with 2 of our local friends,
Yeah.
maybe. Not that they would have to come in here and help us review it, but just to get that experience of the 4-player stuff, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something to
It's
consider.
again, you're
Again,
just
schedules.
adding more
Yeah,
schedules to
I
the
know.
already complicated. But I have a couple people in mind, and they are people that I played Castle Crashers with the first time around. So
Okay. So maybe like if we stream this game or when we stream this game, you might hear more voices on the broadcast.
yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Perfect. My first pick, DiscoCola, it's about time we play a sequel.
Oh, okay.
We've
Trying to
played
think of which sequels
We've
are out
played so many games that are the first in a series of games, and I'm going back to season 1.
there. Oh, I knew it. I think I already know.
I'm going back to season 1, and I'm looking at what games have a sequel from all the way back at season 1. I want to pick Axiom Verge 2.
I knew it. Wow. Wild, because you didn't love Axiom Verge.
I didn't, but we've got to start cracking on these sequels.
Okay.
We've got to start getting some of these under our belt, I think. Axiom Verge 2. And it's good to like scare ourselves a bit. I'm not
Yeah.
excited to play the sequel to a game I didn't really love, but I've also heard Axiom Verge 2 is great, so maybe I'll like this one more. But Axiom Verge 2, just on the Steam storefront, it was released only a few years ago in 2022. And it says, explore a sprawling alien world in the sequel to the award-winning Axiom Verge. How vague could that possibly be? There it is.
All right. Wow. That actually alters some of my plans in between season too.
Okay.
Interesting. I'm going to change one of my GG lists right now.
Whoa. Like as in games you want to stream?
As in games that I am planning to play in between seasons.
Okay.
So, okay, my next pick. This is one that we're going to put on here, and if we feel like we're giving ourselves too much homework, this would be the one that we change, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
I've been really wanting to finish Blasphemous.
Okay, Blasphemous it is. Let's do it.
Blasphemous is hard.
Blasphemous is a long, hard game.
It is a bit longer.
It's a Metroidvania, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me look it up on and it's a game with a sequel. So when we're done with it, in Season 7, we can play Blasphemous 2.
Oh, geez. But if we find that we're loading ourselves up with too much work, this would be the one that I can change.
That's fair, but I also know we've done a mulligan on Blasphemous one other time. You almost picked this for like Season 3 or 4, and we changed the plan.
But here's the deal.
We ended up picking Abzu instead of this. I remember vividly, like us picking like a short, breezy adventure instead of Blasphemous. So
someday my kids will be in school, and then I can have a normal life and normal time.
More time to play.
So
something
someday
like,
we will play Blasphemous.
I mean, I have a long game on my list.
Okay.
So like long games are going to happen. I hope that's okay.
We usually have one at the beginning and one at the end, relatively speaking.
Well, real quick, I think I'll mention that game. That'll be my next pick, I think. Yeah, I'll make that my next pick, and then we can talk about it. But Blasphemous on Steam, the description is, Blasphemous is a brutal action platformer with skilled hack-and-slash combat set in the nightmare world of Cystodia? Is that a V? What is CVSTODIA? Cystodia? Explore, upgrade your abilities, and perform savage executions on the hordes of enemies that stand between you and your quest to break eternal damnation. This thing looks pretty cursed and violent, and I'm into it.
Yes, there will definitely be warnings abound at the start of that review if we do it.
It's a short hike like.
In the sense that it is the opposite.
Yeah. Okay, well, continuing with the trend of long games, this is a game that is more recent. This is a game that is highly lauded. It's a game that I have been dying to play since I played its demo last year. It is Sea of Stars.
Oh, long.
The RPG by Sabotage Studio.
All right.
Sea of Stars is my next pick. And going to Steam, the description reads, Sea of Stars is a turn-based RPG inspired by the classics. It tells the story of two children of the solstice who will combine the powers of the sun and moon to perform eclipse magic, the only force capable of fending off the monstrous creations of the evil alchemist known as the Fleshmancer.
Oh my God.
Try to internalize all that. This is by Sabotage Studio, who made The Messenger. And this is technically a prequel in a way to The Messenger, or at least it's set like hundreds or thousands of years before The Messenger. It takes place in the same world, if you will.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that?
I mean, my thoughts on it are, I've already mentioned that I'm not like super stoked to play this game.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm looking at the PSN profiles to like completion and the time it takes for that. That's a little daunting. I almost also brought Chris Tales to this recording. Spoiler, I didn't, which would have been another long turn-based.
It's another long one. That's one I'm not looking forward to playing, personally.
But you've picked it, so it's here, and we'll decide what to do at the end.
We can maybe adjust things later, so just keep that in mind.
Yep. So for my next one, okay, so my second option is only on PC. I'd love to wait for a console port, but the other one in the category, we have a specific guest in mind. So I'm going to go with my second pick here, and I'm going to jump out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to say, let's play Pizza Tower.
Hell yeah, dude.
This is only available on PC, which is not the way I prefer to play.
Going to Steam, it says Pizza Tower is a fast-paced 2D platformer inspired by the Wario Land series with an emphasis on movement, exploration, and score attack, featuring highly stylized pixel art inspired by the cartoons from the 90s and a highly energetic soundtrack.
It is all of those things. I have seen it.
Other than like the trailer, some of the trailer with the sound turned off, I have seen nothing of this game, but I'm excited because I've heard amazing things.
Yeah.
That's the first platformer on our list. So far we have a co-op game. We have 2 Metroidvanias. So Metroidvania is probably done as like a category, as a genre.
Yeah.
Probably not a third Metroidvania from here, but we'll see. We have an RPG and we have a platformer now. It is time for my second to last pick.
Mm-hmm.
I have an anticipation about what you're going to pick next. So I might not pick that one next.
Well, here's the thing. I have a second pick, and I would love to play that too.
Oh, for your next game?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what if my last pick is your second pick? I'm starting to think that far ahead.
That could happen. I've never seen your body do this during this section.
Well, I hope you don't mind having so many 2023 games in here, because I don't mind.
No, it's fine with
2023
me.
was
It was
a banger
great
year. It was a banger
and
year.
A lot of stuff I missed out on that I'm
choose-
kind of sad about.
I know. So this is our excuse to play this stuff. I'm going to choose Viewfinder.
Viewfinder. That's not what I was expecting.
Well, this is not what I was originally going to say next. Viewfinder, I think, is a good pick because it is so much shorter than something like Sea of Stars. So it is one of our short games to help give you a break
Okay.
in there. So going to Steam, challenge perception, redefine reality, and reshape the world around you with an instant camera. Viewfinder is a new single-player game offering gamers hours of interesting and fun experiences while uncovering the mysteries left behind. This is from Sad Owl Studios. This was a Best Debut Indie nominee at the Game Awards. So this is a first game from Sad Owl Studios. This is a puzzle game, too. This is where we're taking pictures of the environment and using those pictures to make new platforms to walk on and other things. Any thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it looks super cool. You put me in an unfortunate position of picking between two games that I really actually want to play in the same category now. Because I'm pretty sure you were going to pick what I'm going to pick next.
What is that pick? Segue.
God. I really want to play both of these so bad, but I have both the trailers open right now, and I really want to play Cocoon more.
Hell yeah.
I really want to play Cocoon so bad.
Hell yeah, dude.
I've been looking forward to it for a while.
Yeah, I have no reservations about it because it would have been one of my picks probably.
Yeah.
But I had a sense about it. This is a puzzle game, and Viewfinder is obviously a puzzle game. So we have a good spread here still. Cocoon on Steam reads, from the lead gameplay designer of Limbo and Inside, Cocoon takes you on an adventure across worlds within worlds, master world-leaping mechanics, and solve intricate puzzles to unravel a cosmic mystery. So there you go.
Yeah. And the gameplay looks just incredible.
Yep. It won Best Debut Indie at the Game Awards. It's won tons of awards. There are so many accolades for Cocoon. I've heard nothing but good things. Another relatively short game, too.
Yeah.
So
it looks like completion is really simple also. Like most people who play it are 100%ing it.
Okay. So my my last pick would have been Cocoon. And now, God, there's another 2023 game I want to play. This game is on PS4.
Bless. Okay.
So this is a third puzzle game.
Okay.
Okay. What do you think about Chance of Sonar?
That was my second pick for Cocoon. I want to play it.
Holy crap. It was meant to be. It will be this slot. Chance of
Hell
Sonar.
yes. It's on sale right now, so I'm going to go home and buy it.
Heckin' buy it. Yeah, I saw that. It's like 25% off or something.
Yeah.
And it's already like only $19.99. So legend says that one day a traveler will reunite the peoples of the tower who are unable to communicate with each other, observe, listen, and decipher ancient languages in a fascinating universe inspired by the myth of Babel.
That makes me so happy that you picked this.
That's amazing, dude. It was one of my backup picks. So these are my top 4 picks and then my backup picks.
I had another one of those on mine as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. My backup co-op game is in there.
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
So that's awesome. I'm so glad because Chance of Sonar was the one that I was like, I wish you would have picked Cocoon so I could pick Chance of Sonar.
That worked out.
Yeah,
It
worked out great.
We're fine. So we have Castle Crashers Remastered, which is a co-op game. We have Axiom Verge 2, which is a Metroidvania. We have Blasphemous, which is a Metroidvania. We have Sea of Stars, which is an RPG. We have Pizza Tower, a platformer. We have Viewfinder, a puzzle game. Cocoon, a puzzle game. Chance of Sonar, a puzzle game. And then we have our final 2 games. Do you want to talk about our final 2 games and our guests intended for those games?
Yes. We have become great friends with podcast No Small Games, and they allowed us to be guests on their Secret Santa game of No Small Games, and we are so excited to finally have the chance to have them back on. We'll be having them on as individuals, and so a specific egg or Emily will be on our episode covering Super Meat Boy,
Yeah.
which sounds so daunting, but gosh, egg is just so hardcore. And then Kate or Blossom, or Kate, will be on for Dredge, which is another 2023 game that we've both, I think both of us have been interested in trying.
Yes.
I'm at least very curious about it because I know very little. I have the soundtrack and I have a good friend that's a big fan of it, but that's the extent of my knowledge.
I know very little as well, so that'll be exciting. We love No Small Games. We love that they picked 2 very different games for our season.
Super diverse.
Like one's an older like platforming game, and one's a very new like 2023 horror game. So love that. So now we have a co-op. We have 2 Metroidvanias, 1 RPG, 2 platformers, 3 puzzle games. It's going to be another season of the puzzle, and a horror game. So we could mix up this list in a couple ways. We could try to think about, not putting all the 2023 games next to each other.
I think that's impossible.
I know, but we could spread out the non-2023 games,
a little bit.
sprinkle them throughout.
Yeah.
And then we could also be mindful of maybe really separating Axiom Verge 2 and Blasphemous, for instance.
Yeah. I think also we need to separate Sea of Stars and Blasphemous quite a bit.
Well, how about this? How about so we like to make relatively more monumental games, either the starting game or the closing game or both. Sea of Stars could be a closing game.
Yeah. I'm
episode 10.
That's sort of, once you said it, I was like, yeah, that's the one that's the closer.
Okay. Sea of Stars will be number 10. According to Kate and Emily's availabilities and their schedules.
Oh, yeah, that's going to dictate a couple things.
That's going to dictate where their games go.
Okay, so looking at the calendar, we're probably going to want Dredge around episode 7.
Okay, I will put it at 7 for now.
Because that will give us a recording date that works with Kate's schedule the best, I think.
Should Super Meat Boy be around episode 3?
Just to spread them out? Yeah, I think so. And I remember Emily's availability being
earlier,
a little bit more, yeah.
A little sooner, okay. Do you want to start with a longer game or a shorter game? Do you mind what we start with?
I don't mind what we start with. I do think it should probably be longer because that gives me the opportunity to work on it between seasons and focus on that first. I do tend to like having a longer one first, so that would probably be Blasphemous.
Blasphemous? Let's do Blasphemous first. Here's an idea.
Okay.
We could start working on Castle Crashers a little bit during our break too.
Okay.
And it could be like number 2 or 3.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah, that works for me.
Well,
it's not.
We're not spreading out the older games at that point as much.
Well, I feel less strong about spreading that out.
That's fair. What do you think about Castle Crashers being number 2?
Yeah, that works for me.
Like, we're really switching up where the co-op game is. I kind of like that the co-op game could appear anywhere.
Yeah. It's not like a long game, but it can be hard.
Yeah.
So some of that length comes from just like getting defeated. And also scheduling, of course.
So then I think from there, number 3 could be Super Meat Boy.
Yep.
Then I really think we got to get a puzzle game in there. We got to start knocking out a puzzle game.
Oh, yeah. That's
so
a good
I think
point.
4 needs to be a puzzle game. And it could be either Viewfinder, Cocoon, or Chance of Sonar. Do you think there's a meaningful choice there, or is it kind of arbitrary for you?
I kind of want to put, and here's just like the way my brain is doing it. Super Meat Boy is one of those like first came out PS3, 360 sort of era games. I remember it being on those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
What if we did Cocoon just because in my mind it has this line drawn to it to Limbo, which comes from the same
Okay.
era.
Okay. I don't mind either way.
Yeah.
What it is.
I'm gonna try to not always reference Limbo or that era in either episode, but it's a nice partner in the playlist.
Sure. Then we could go to Pizza Tower next.
Okay. Pizza Tower after Cocoon.
Then we could do Axiom Verge 2, which is a good 5-episode separation from the previous Metroidvania. So then after Axiom Verge 2, we could do Dredge, which is our second guest appearance episode. Then we could do, we're going to end up with Viewfinder and Chance of Sonar, 2 puzzle games back to back. Is
Okay,
that fine?
so what if we did this instead? What if we swapped either Axiom Verge or Pizza Tower into 8 or 9, and then we put, well, I guess it would have to be Axiom Verge 2. We could put Axiom Verge 2 in 8 or 9.
Yeah, so that we go Cocoon, a puzzle game, Pizza Tower, a platforming game, and then either Viewfinder or Chance, a puzzle game. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you want to do Viewfinder at 6?
At 6? Okay.
Okay, so then Viewfinder at 6, then Dredge at 7, then Axiom Verge 2 at 8,
Yep,
and then Chance of Sonar at 9, and then Sea of Stars at 10.
I think Chance of Sonar is a good right before Sea of Stars too, compared to the other options. Cool.
Okay, so the order for Season 6 is Blasphemous, Castle Crashers Remastered, Super Meat Boy, Cocoon, Pizza Tower, Viewfinder, Dredge, Axiom Verge 2, Chance of Sonar, and Sea of Stars.
Awesome.
Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good. And then looking at the calendar, Bopo, for you, we will probably start recording, unfortunately, in about a month if we want to give ourselves the same lead time we had this last season.
Which we really did need, if not more time. So yeah, we do need that lead time we had at the very least. Okay, so mid-March or so?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We get a month off, my friend.
Okay, sounds good.
I hope you beat Demon Souls.
I'm very close, actually.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. And speaking of that, what are we looking forward to playing during our microscopic break? DiscoCola, what are you looking forward to maybe enjoying? It doesn't even have to be games, if you have any other activities going on maybe, but
I actually, it's funny you say that. I did take some nights this week where I could have played games and I opted to just not. I opted to just do something else.
That's good.
Went down a YouTube rabbit hole or put away some Digimon cards even. So I did take a break from just gaming. Like Sifu really kind of kicked my ass and took a little bit of wind out of my sails. I am really close to the platinum now, though.
That's awesome.
I turned it back on, played easy mode. So originally, I don't know if I had that first on my list, but I was going to finish that. And it looks like I'll do that a little bit sooner than I thought. I actually made a GG app list that is like essentially the order I'm going to go back and clean up trophies for. So you can check that out. But I did just change it because I'm going to finish Axiom Verge in between seasons. I still have a few trophies to clean up there.
Oh, you want to finish that before Axiom Verge 2. That makes all the sense now.
I love when I can look at my trophy list and all of the sequels are just like right there next to each other.
Oh, yeah.
Because it does that sometimes in like chronological order that you did it. So if I can get the 100 in both right next to each other, that would be just satisfying to look at.
Cool. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Any other games?
Yeah. In order, I'm probably going to do Sifu and then Axiom Verge and then 2D and Top D, just because of those approachability options. Mm-hmm. I had a Space for the Unbound up here next. I might skip that in favor of finally finishing Stray. I still haven't gotten all of those trophies.
Oh, yeah. So you can knock that out in like a weekend.
Yeah, I might go back to that. But beyond that, I know that I'm not going to have time. So you can just check out the GG app list that I made and see what I would be doing if I had more time.
I'm going to be working on the platinum in Sifu, I hope. But I'm also playing Demon's Souls, which I call Demon's Ols. And I've been streaming both of those games at twitch.tv/BO__PO. And Demon's Ols is hard. It's long, but it's very relaxing to me in an odd way.
Relaxing. Okay.
Yeah, I find it, I don't know. I'm in my happy place when I play it. I find it therapeutic and soothing in a messed up way. But then I also maybe could get to some DLC for some PlayStation games like Horizon Forbidden West and Ghost of Tsushima. Those have been on my list for a long time. I also have down Cult of the Lamb DLC, and then Pikmin 2 maybe. Like, I doubt I'll play all these and also get the Platinum in Sifu. We'll see. But those are my options, I think.
Yeah, those are good options. And then come May, we'll have started recording by then, but our season won't premiere by then. I am hoping to take a day or two off of work and just play either 24 hours worth of or 18 hours worth of Mega Mans and Mega Man likes and stream the whole thing.
Yeah.
Whether that happens in May or not remains to be seen. It basically has to be a time when my family is out of town. Otherwise, it's just not possible.
You're going to be a shut-in video game player for a long time. That'll be so fun.
Yeah, I'm going to get food delivered. I never get food delivered.
Whoa.
I'll order some like wings or something.
Nice.
I can't touch a controller after wings. What am I talking about?
You're going to have the delivery person just put it right in your mouth.
Feed me.
Feed me. Put the wingy in my mouthy.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. Well, DiscoCola, that's the end of this episode and season of Underplayed. You can find more of our episodes at kzum.org/underplayed and on common podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Our music was composed by Jack Rodenberg. Our art comes from Onimochi. Underplayed is on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at underplayedpod. You can find me in those places at Bopo. That's BO_PO. I'm also on the GG app where you can see my game lists and what I'm currently playing.
And I am at DiscoCola in all of those places to varying degrees. You can check out my GG app list that I already mentioned. And you can check out the games that I'm going to play during those Mega Man and Mega Man-like streams and recommend more if you have them. You can also find Underplayed on Twitch, twitch.tv/Underplayed podcast, where apparently we're going to be playing Castle Crashers quite soon.
Yes,
so
quite soon.
Keep tuned for that. It'll be a lot of fun. It's such a daft game, and so I guess I'm looking forward to playing that in front of an audience with you.
Next season, we'll have plenty more secret and featured games to play and review. Until then, everyone, keep on playing.